Hello everyone, this is Mr. Grogan. Today's video will be going into velocity. This is lesson 18 on code.org, and the assignment itself will be sections 4 through 6 and 8 through 10. All right. And the overall objectives for this particular lesson is to use the velocity and rotation speed blocks to create and change sprite movement, and also to describe advantages of simplifying code by using higher level blocks. All right. And essentially what we're going to be doing with this lesson and with the next few lessons is that we're going to be exploring different ways, more advanced ways in which you can move your sprite around on the screen. Up to this point, we have done basic movements, moving left, moving right, up, down, right? We even played around a little bit with the speed, okay? But there are other ways in which you can move a sprite around on the screen, all right? And with this lesson and also within the next few lessons, we're going to be going into different ways that we can move our characters around on a screen, all right? Before I get into lesson 18, you'll notice that if you've been following along with the lessons, that the last lesson that we did was lesson 15. I decided to skip lessons 16 and 17. Lesson 17 is like a mini project, but lesson 16, I'm not holding you responsible for it, mainly because most of that lesson deals with using the mouse to move your character around on the screen. And for most of you, you're not going to be, with the Chromebooks that you have, you're not using a mouse for it. All right. However, there are a couple things I want to quickly touch upon in lesson 16 before I go into lesson 18 that you will need to be aware of. All right. There is in lesson 16, most of it deals with the mouse mouse went down, mouse went up, mouse did move. All right. That works a little bit very similar to how you would do the key down code. All right. But there are some codes here that do come into play in lesson 18 and also, in the next several lessons. All right. In particular, there's 4 of them here in particular. The key went down and key went up code. All right. Basically what that does is the key went down. It allows your sprite to move by just pressing a key, okay? The key down code, you have to hold on the key in order for your sprite to move. But if you use a key went down code or a key went up code, sprite will move. If you just tap the key, sprite will move, okay? So as I said, it works differently than the key down code, all right? Key went up is, we'll move the sprite up by just tapping on either the up button or any other key on the keyboard. Okay. The sprite visible code basically does what you would expect. It allows your sprite to become invisible if you want it to be. All right. This code may come into play a little bit later on. Okay. But I do want to, and I believe I may have touched upon it before, but I do want to make sure that you're aware of that. All right. The if-else statement, okay, we've gone into if statements, okay, up to this point. The if-else statement, all right, this one is important in the sense that what it does is that the if-else statement, it works exactly like the if statement will work, okay? But what you can do is that you can add another condition called, what they would say, the else statement. If what you can do is that if the condition is not met, or if the condition is met, you can have code to run that will allow your sprite to execute the command if the condition is true. But if the condition is not true, you can run a separate code that will allow you to have your sprite do something else if the condition is not true. All right. It's easier to show you examples of how that works rather than just explain it to you. When we get to that, when we get to a section in which the if-else statement comes into play, then I will explain that. It does not come into You do not use this in lesson 18, but it does come up a little bit later on. So I wanted to make sure that, before I move forward, that you were aware of the if-else statement, the sprite visible code, and also the key went down and key went up. On lesson 18, the key went down and key went up codes will play a role in this. Will play a role in lesson 18. So if you're not sure of how the key went down or key went up codes work, they get introduced on lesson 16. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, moving along to lesson 18. Lesson 18 specifically deals with velocity. All right. And what that does is that the velocity code will allow you to speed up or slow down your sprite as you move along on a screen. Think of it as when you play a video game, in the sense that your character or sprite, you can have it move quickly or move slowly. All right. Think of it, or maybe even as a, if you're playing a racing game, when you have your car speed up or slow down. That's often how, often in that case, a sprite velocity code is used there. All right. And the determinant of it is that it's the sprite velocity is a velocity in a positive direction or negative in pixels per frame. All right. It does give a description of a sprite velocity X and sprite velocity Y here. But as I said, with this particular video, I will show you how to do the sections on here, most of the sections, and you'll get an idea how the sprite velocity code works. The sprite rotation speed, what that does is that it's a clockwise rotation change in degrees per frame of the sprite. Again, much like the sprite velocity code, once we get into the sections of this lesson, you'll get a better understanding on how that works. Okay, so as I said, the lesson itself is sections 4 through 6 and 8 through 10. All right, I will go over most of these with you. All right, but before I get into section 4, I do want to point out that on section 3 there is a brief video that goes into how velocity works with code.org. It's a good idea to take a quick on your own time that you go through that. It's only a couple minutes long. A lot of the stuff that gets discussed there will be discussed in this video. All right. So we go into section 4 on lesson 18. All right. And what you will see on section 4, okay, is that there's a feather sprite that should be floating down on the screen. Right now it's just sitting there. All right. And what we're going to do is that we're going to move this feather down. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to find the block that will make the feather sprite go down the screen, and we're going to use it in the draw loop. Okay. And it even says show me where. Okay. So what we're going to do is that we are going to, we're going to put in code that's going to have this feather move down. All right. And so what we need to do is that because this feather is moving downwards, all right, we're going to use the sprite velocity Y, because anytime when a sprite is moving up or down, we use that involves Y coordinates. Left and right uses X coordinates. All right. So what we're going to do, if we look in the workspace, we have one variable, a feather. Okay. And all that we're going to do here is that we're simply going to use a sprite velocity Y. We're going to put it right here. Okay. And we're going to rename it feather. And all right. And we're going to set this to 2. We reset, run, feather moves down. Okay. And I set it at 2 so that way the feather moves down slowly, because as you know, a feather doesn't drop like a bowling ball would. Okay. It drops down slowly. All right. So for section 4, all you would need to do is just put a sprite velocity Y code on line 3 and change the name of the sprite to feather, set it to 2, so that way this feather goes down slowly. All right. When we get to section 5, all right, section 5, as you'll see here, we'll use the sprite rotation speed. Okay. All right. Now, when I run the program, it has right in the middle of the program is a sun, stationary. Okay. But what we're going to do is we are going to make the sun rotate by 3 degrees each time using the rotation speed block. Okay. And you'll see something that says show me where. Just use the rotation speed block here. Okay. Much like section 4, this one's relatively easy to do. All right. All you have to do is just put in the sprite rotation speed. Okay. And we're going to change this from sprite to sun because as a variable has already been set to sun. Okay. And I'm going to start off by putting in 2. All right. And you'll notice that the sun is rotating relatively slowly. But if I change this to 3, it goes a little faster. Okay. So that's all you need to do for section 5. All right. Is you just put in a sprite rotation speed, set it up on line 3 on the workspace, and change it to sun, and set the rotation speed to 3. Okay. Much like as it was on section 4, there is a function draw here, but you don't really need to mess around with that. Okay. All right. So because both the code here goes outside the function draw. All right. We go into section 6. Section 6 on lesson 18. All right. Again, involves the rotation speed. Okay. We use the rotation speed outside the draw loop to make the sprite rotate when the program started. But you can also use the rotation speed inside the draw loop to change the speed of the sprite during the game. Okay. So what we're going to be doing, all right, is that we're going to be using the sprite rotation speed, but we're going to put it inside the function draw. All right. So what we're going to, and if you look at the directions, what they want you to do is they want you to put an if statement inside the function draw, which actually there's one already there. My bad. All right. And it's already been this, the if statement is the condition for the if statement is already set up. Okay. The key went down code has already been set as your conditional. All right. And again, earlier in the video, I did explain a little bit how the key went down code works. All right. So what we're going to do is that we're the condition or the code to run if the condition is true. What we're going to do is that we're going to use a sprite rotation speed. We're going to put it right in here. Okay. And our variable is wheel. So we're going to change this from sprite to wheel. All right. And we're going to have it get the value of 2. All right. And then I reset, run. Now, right away, you'll notice that once you run the program, nothing changed. Okay. What you have to do is press the space bar and the wheel turns. Okay. Now, notice that, well, you may not notice because it's a video here, that when you press the space bar, okay, all you have to do, you don't have to hold down the space bar key. You just need to tap it and it will move. Okay. That's all. And that's how the key went down code works. If it was a key down code, once you let go of the space bar, the thing would stop moving. All right. But all you have to do is with a key went down code is you just tap on the button and it moves. Okay. And it moves continuously because it's inside the function draw. Right. And that's essentially section 6. All right. moving on to section 8 on lesson 18. You can skip section 7. All right. What we're doing here, okay, is that we have a soccer ball, all right, that is, once the soccer ball hits the bottom end of the program, it bounces right back up, all right, and then it disappears off the screen, okay? So what we're going to do here is that we're going to make it bounce back down when it hits the top of the screen, all right? So before I get started, we have to look in the workspace. We have a couple of different variables set up, one for a ball and one for the field, okay? And we have a function draw that has an if statement there. If ball y is greater than 380, the velocity moves at -5, all right? That's basically this ball moving down here, and it bounces at 380 on the y, okay? So if you run the program, you'll notice that if you put the mouse, or if you put the insertion point right down to y380, okay, goes right back up, all right? And if you have the insertion point right at y380, you'll notice that that's right when the middle of that soccer ball hits y380, it goes right back up, all right? So what we're going to do on section 8 here is that we're going to add another if statement, okay? So that way it will bounce down when it gets up here, right? So what we're going to do, okay, is that we're going to go to Toolbox, Drawing, and, Toolbox Control, I'm sorry. And we're going to put an if statement right here, right underneath the first one, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the insertion point back up here. And if you'll notice that the first if statement had the coordinate set at 380 right down here, okay? All right, and it goes to 400. So what we're going to do to make this bounce downward up here, is that we're going to set a coordinate that's going to be set to, the y coordinate will be set to 20. Okay, so what we're going to do here is that we're going to go to Toolbox Math, all right, and we're going to use a less than operator, okay? We're going to put that right here, okay? And I'm going to go to Toolbox Sprites, and I'm going to use a ball sprite Y, put it right here. I'm going to put the ball right here, or I'm going to change it from sprite to ball, and then I'm going to set it to 20, okay? Next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Toolbox Sprites, and I'm going to go to Toolbox, Sprite Velocity Y. All right. And I'm going to change this from sprite to ball. Okay. And you'll notice up here I had it set at -5. Okay. That made the ball go down. But to make the ball go up when it hits 20, we're going to set this to 5. All right. Because this would set at -5. We're going to set this one to 5. All right. So I'm going to reset, run. Let's see what happens. Ball bounces. Once it gets to the top, it bounces back down. All right. So essentially what I just did there was that I have the ball, I set up another if statement. It said if ball Y is less than 20. So meaning that once the ball hits Y20, it will go down. All right. And I set the velocity to 5 because for Y, to have the ball, have something move downward, all right, you use a positive number. Okay, so that's why I put the ball velocity Y gets the value of 5 on that second if statement. And that's essentially how section 8 works. All right. Section 9, all right, section 9 I'm going to have you do on your own. all right, you can do one of the two following activities. All right, it's either you could do either this one, which allows you to control the speed of a flybot. All right. Basically, what you have to do here is you put an if statement inside the draw loop to check whether the space bar is pressed. Use a velocity Y block to make the sprite move up when the user presses the space bar. Okay. And check that your animation behaves the way that you expect. Okay. So basically, what you're doing is you're putting in an if statement to make the flybot move up whenever the user presses the space bar. Okay. You can either do that one. All right. The other one, it involves a paintbrush. Essentially, what you're doing, we did something similar to this a couple of lessons ago. All right. But what they want you to do here is they want you to dip the paintbrush in the paint. Okay. So that way you have the paintbrush moves down, touches the palette, and then moves back up. All right. So what you have to do is put code to make the paintbrush, to make this look like this. All right. And as I said, on section 9, you only need to do one out of the two. Whichever one you choose is entirely up to you. Okay. And in order to do either one of them, you can just refer to any of the other sections on this lesson to help you. All right. Section 10. All right. Section 10. All right. What you're doing here, okay, is that you have three if statements inside the draw loop. Okay. The conditions are set for all three of them. Okay. But there's no code to run if each of these three if statements are true. Okay. So what you're going to do is that you're going to use a sprite velocity X block inside each if statement to make the three following movements. All right. And it'll tell you if the user presses the right arrow key, move the fish to the right. If the fish gets to the right-hand side of the screen, move the fish to the left. And if the fish gets to the left-hand side of the screen, move the fish to the right. All right. So what we're going to do, here is we look at the code. There's one variable, fish. Okay. All right. And you'll notice that there's an animation that's set there. Okay. So if we go to the animation tab, which is right up here, you'll notice that there's two animations here. All right. Fish L and fish R. Okay. And that's important because as you'll see when we get into this. All right. So, all right. So for the first one, okay, we have an if. We go inside the function draw. All right. And the first if statement has if key went down right. Okay. What we're going to do here is that we're going to use a sprite velocity X code here. Okay. Because we're dealing with a fish that's moving left to right. Okay. So anything that's moving left to right, we use an X coordinate that involves X coordinates. So we're going to use the sprite velocity X. We're going to put that right here. Okay. We're going to change the name to fish. Okay. And we're going to set it to 2. All right. And let's see. And we should be able to test it out here. So if I run the code or if I run the program, okay, so far nothing happens. But when I hit the right arrow key, fish moves. Okay. And it moves off the screen. Okay. We're not done yet. All right. So we have to add some code for these two if statements. All right. So, but this first if statement, that works. So we get to the second if statement. If fish X is greater than 400, what we're going to do is that we're going to use a sprite velocity X code here. I'm going to change this to fish. Okay. And we're going to set this, we set this one here to a 2. So we're going to set this one to -2. All right. Now we're also going to add, because this involves the fish moving to the left. Okay. All right. What we're going to do is that we're going to use a sprite set animation code. We're going to put it right in here. And I'm going to change this to fish. And we're going to change the animation to a fish L. meaning that fish moving to the left. For the last one, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to use a sprite velocity X. All right, change that to fish. All right, and we're going to set this to 2. But we're also going to add another set animation code. I'm going to put this right in here. I'm going to change this to fish. And we're going to fish right. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset. I'm going to run the program. Okay. And I'm going to hit the right arrow key. The fish moves. But once it gets to the end, notice that it switches. It goes left. Once it gets to the left-hand side of the screen, it goes right. All right. So the fish does not leave the screen. And the reason why it's not leaving the screen, all right, is that, well, first off, all right, when I first run the program, nothing happens. So I hit the right arrow. When I hit the right arrow key, and I don't even need to hold down on the right arrow key, I just need to tap it. Okay. Goes to the right-hand side of the screen. Once it gets to the right-hand side of the screen, basically at 400, okay, once the fish gets right about here, or X400, goes right. All right. Once it gets to 0, once the middle of the fish's body gets to 0, goes to the right. Okay. That's the fish right. Okay. Once the fish gets to X400, turns left. That's the fish L code, the fish L animation. Once it gets to 0 over here, fish faces to the right, like that. All right. And once you're done with that section, you'll be done with lesson 18. The next couple of lessons will deal with other ways that you can have a sprite move around on the screen. The next couple of lessons will deal with what happens when 2 sprites touch each other. All right. There's a couple of different things that you can do with the code once 2 sprites touch each other, like bouncing off of each other, colliding with one another, things of that nature. But we'll get into that in the next couple of lessons. If you have any questions on any of this, please let me know. Thank you very much.